I'm going to start off with a story, and it was about when I was a teenager. So when I was a teenager, and therefore probably thought I knew everything, I remember that whilst I mostly stayed shy and quiet about my faith outside of conversations with my Christadelphian friends, one thing which got me a bit noisy and animated was when school teachers or TV presenters mentioned stuff to do with religion, science or history, which disagreed with the worldview that I had at the time. I had a very black and white view. I was right. Well, I thought I was right anyway. But I was definitely certain. I was in possession of knowledge, be that from a scientific or prophetical view of the Bible, which I thought others didn't have due to their ignorance. And yet, I'm not sure how much of a part faith really played in all that, which is perhaps why, bizarrely, my process of deconstruction came for me at around the same time that I decided to be baptised. My faith developed and evolved as I became part of two new communities. Firstly, an ecclesia that I had started attending, and secondly, a lively and loving Christadelphian weekly student group to which I belonged. Both of these enabled me to increase my faith in Jesus whilst I was losing my faith in dogmatic facts. I was shaking off the need to have everything absolutely right because it felt like I belonged in communities that valued Jesus and God as their foundations, rather than merely using Bible verses to prove facts. And if that makes it sound like my old ecclesia didn't get that right, I would say that it was perhaps more my perception and just a fresh new resolve, as I would hate anyone to think that I would put the blame on an ecclesia or even my parents for me lacking faith until my late 20s. So our Christadelphian community has its foundations in the Enlightenment era, when science was supreme in making everything provable. And it's therefore inevitable that the basis for our unique brand of Christianity puts such strong emphasis on the truth as a list of facts. Our statement of faith, whilst hugely important in differentiating us from those who believe in things like the Trinity or the eternal soul, as well as the Commandments of Christ booklet from a similar era, I feel it misses the mark when it comes to something quite vital. We can tick boxes in terms of what we believe and what we don't believe, and we can try to obey Jesus' commands. But whilst this all may convince us that God exists, and that God exists and that Jesus was raised from the dead, and help us to live better lives, it doesn't necessarily help us to develop a faith. It can be so easy for us to just go through the motions but miss a spiritual influence in our lives, that of allowing God and Jesus to change us, rather than it just being about words on a page. So when we consider challenging subjects like we are today, we know that undoubtedly this can give some parts of our community more reasons for division, because it can so often be merely about being right or wrong. But actually, this division and conflict is in itself, I believe, a major cause for someone losing their faith. Because in my example, my faith was developed by being in communities which allowed it to grow and thrive. Consequently, in communities in which we aren't trusted, in places where we have to suppress our beliefs, our faith will most likely take a battering. So whilst today is hugely important in trying to answer difficult questions, we need to be humble. We need to realise that we will never have 100% perfectly accurate version of the truth. But more than that, we need an attitude of understanding that the truth as a list of provable facts is in itself only a small part of the truth. Our faith will only survive if we're in a community of believers who allow each other to develop our faith and who live lives that, like Jesus, demonstrate the way, the truth, and the life that points to the kingdom of God. That's done by us having good relationships with each other and by attempting to have relationships across what might sometimes seem like a huge abyss. And ultimately, it can only be done if we make sure that we're walking with God.